All right, fabulous Friday to all listeners and viewers. I take it we should be online. So, those viewing and listening, welcome to another episode of Creative Voices, a special edition of Voices where we focus on all things creative and innovative. And speaking of creative and innovative, we have two quite creative and innovative, I'll say young ladies, with us today. Yes, so I'll let them introduce themselves. In particular, I will be focusing primarily on the literary aspects of the creative side of this Creative Voices episode. So, without further ado, let the ladies introduce themselves, especially not just an introduction, but share with us your journey, you know, where you started, what brought you to this point, where you both have published works. I'm not trying to give too much away, but you know, besides publishing, you do other you have other creative endeavors. So if you want to speak about those as well, but bringing it towards the published work that you currently have.
Yeah.
Yes, you've been nominated to go first.
So, hi Rachel, and my name is Veronica Julius, and my business is Sassy V Collectibles. But today we're here talking about my published book, Pieces of Me. This book has been something, oh God, this is like 20 years ago poetry that I've written, and I published before but was kind of scared to show to the public. So this year I decided I am going to publish and I am going to make sure that people know about it. And all these come from things happening as a teenager, as a young adult, as a young mother, and just words that I thought that helped me along the way, and I just wanted to share it with the world now.
Excellent, excellent. And we now go over to, I won't say the name, I'll let her introduce herself.
All right, good morning, everyone. Gian Williams Knight. I consider myself to be a creative writer. Poetry, just general. I've been dabbling with playwriting. That's one of my goals, do my own full-length play. I would love to do that one day. And
You are going to do that one
yes,
day.
I will. I will. It's true because every time I dabble in it, people ask me when am I gonna do my own thing. So I will. I will. It's just to find the time. But I'm here because life put me here as an author of my book, Lifting the Weight of Miscarriage, going through a late term miscarriage in 2020, and just asking me questions about the experience. I decided to write it all down, and in writing it all down, I decided I'm going to make this public. So
Right.
I always say life made me an author.
Well, that's heavy, you know. And but obviously I've known Jian for a while, and she's been quite modest on the creative side of things. I don't think she's simply, well, even as it relates to literary type stuff, the poetry aspect of it, her delivery, because there's a thing, there's such a thing as a great poet in terms of a writer, and then there's another side where they're a performer, right? So, and sometimes you get two in one, and sometimes one leads you to the other in terms of over years getting the jitters out, and even when you're seasoned, you still get jitters. I'm sure Joanne can speak about that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that because you perform 100,000 times that this next one time isn't going to generate some sort of a little anxiety, because sometimes the settings are always different settings, etc. So I say that to say that I've seen Gian perform her poems or poetry over time, and I think it is a performance in terms of not just what is written but how it is shared. So that is a very important aspect of creative sharing. But now you all got to the end point for the most part, but we want to get, what, well, Gian kind of hinted towards in terms of her book entirely, but just so beyond the work, more about you as a creative in this space. Tell us, plan or paint the picture for us in terms of what the journey was like from whenever it was Could be you were 3 years old and, you know, whatever it is, but just kind of map it out for us.
Well, you know, all my life I wanted to be a writer. I don't know how I became a designer at all.
That's interesting.
When I went to school, I did subjects that I could be a writer. So I just have this crazy imagination. So what I did when I was a teenager, like I had these big journals with all my stories and lots of stuff. So it's something that I always wanted to do, but I was kind of shy. And then I have like books written home, just sitting down there doing nothing. But I just felt like I had the imagination, and it's just something from early teenage that I used to do, just write this journals and journals home with stories.
Really? So what prompted you to kind of put, maybe prompt is not the right word or term, but what led you to kind of putting the writing like kind of aside, but focusing on the artisan aspect of your path? Because I'll just call you sassy, because the sassy brand, I think, is a well-established brand in St. Kitts Nevis by now, especially as it relates to the bags, and you've expanded into other things. So you could speak about that journey as well. What got you into the bag, or that hands-on creative? Because writing, you're using your hands, but you're using your hands to shape words. But now you're using your hands to actually,
Shape other things.
yeah, you're doing craft, right?
Well, I'm going to tell you a story. I remember when I was 16, I was writing in my journal, and I always wanted a magazine.
Okay.
So we actually did a magazine. I had a magazine, Sparkle magazine, and we did about 9 issues years ago. And also I wrote in it that I wanted to be a designer, because I used to draw little clothes and stuff. So I used to dabble in a little art when I was in school. And I remembered I had this family member who said, you know, come out to be nothing. Nobody does make money from writing, and you know. So early adulthood, I kind of like put it on the back burner. And when I was 26, I was like, okay, then you know what? I feel like I want to do the things I said I'm going to do as a teenager, and that's how the magazine came about. And I also had a library in Tabernacle for 5 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know about that.
I just don't want people to know things. So we had a library in Tabernacle for 5 years until COVID, and we had to leave the building, so we ended up and donated all the books, because I've always been a reader. I mean, Daniel Steele, Jackie Collins is a reader. And but I like dress. It's a Barbie long time. I like to put on clothes. Don't tell nobody I said that. And I used to go by my seamstress, and a day we were at work, and I used to go by the fabric store and buy little materials. I mean, the girls in the office, when things kind of slow, we used to take glue and make bag. I'm like, so one of them said, maybe come make this a business. I said, come buy them there. And all this time, like, I used to like cut out the bags, and I got them at my seamstress, and my seamstress saw it for me, because I just wanted to have something different, something that nobody else have. And then I decided to walk away from my job, and because, you know, all the time I just tell God, you know, we want to own our own business, but we're too scared, and you know, it's financially, like, we're gonna just stop from working and just do something. So I took it as an opportunity, and then the time I went somewhere was, I was telling Vern, I was saying, Vern, you could sell the bag. I said, who can buy them? They're weird. And then it just happened to just became a thing. I don't even know how it became a thing, but it was just, I just like to be different, and like when you walk down the road, you know, you have something that make you feel confident, you know, you walk out there, your outfit, and then ask Gia, and she put on, she says, you just feel this extra hype in your step. And so that was the process of, but even though I used to dabble in the little designing and so, like, I didn't expect like I gonna make a bag. Like when I started, I couldn't sew. But my mother was a seamstress, so she used to do it for me. But then, you know, wink, wink, like to me, she used to cut a little style. I said, I could do it too. And then my aunt, my cousin, she got me a sewing machine, and I just decided.
So you taught yourself sewing?
Yeah, went on YouTube and.
Yeah, YouTube University. Right? YouTube
University, and then if I had a style in mind and I couldn't figure it out, I go on YouTube, because everything there, and it just happened. It just happened, and this year we made 10 years. No,
imagine that.
Right. So you have another nice session for the 10th
Yes,
anniversary.
we're working on. We did every 2 years we do a little event. They stop a little now. we were doing an event, a grand event. So this year I'm planning on doing an event for our 10 years anniversary.
Excellent. I mean, so I'm gonna come back to the library because that's very interesting in terms of what brought you to this. We're gonna take a break now, and once we get back, we'll hear Gian's a little bit more about Gian's journey as well. So this first half is of Creative Voices brought to us by Rams and TDC. So we'll go to a break and be right back.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Heritage matters to me. Heritage matters to you. Join me, Percival Hanley, this coming Friday and every other Friday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon for Heritage Matters on Win Media SKN 98.9. Heritage matters to me. Heritage matters to you.
Building supplies, electrical supplies, furniture, appliances, carpets and tiles. It's the company where you can get it all. All at TDC, home and building depot. From lawn and garden, the TVs and stereos. All at TDC, home and building depot. Come on down, get what you're looking for. It's all at TDC, home and building depot.
Campari, Red Passion, embrace the mix.
Campari Red Passion, full action, this is Red Passion. Embrace the mix, add Campari, make it turn and twist. Add your chaser in your drink. Campari Red Passion, make the nicest mix. Campari!
Campari Red Passion, embrace the mix. Must be 18 years or older to drink. Drink responsibly.
All right, welcome back. And so we're going to jump right into it. Back with Jihan to share with us a bit more about, a bit more about Jihan, essentially.
Well, how I got into writing, I think that was the question.
Yeah.
As long as I know myself that it's what I've done, I think I grew up a bit of a loner. Everybody was outside playing sports, and I just wanted to stay inside and read. I preferred to write how I felt rather than to say how I felt. And because I realized that when you write, nobody could tell you to hush. Nobody could tell you
That's a good point.
to say it differently.
Right.
This is your powerful outlet. I get to say whatever I want. And, if you read it after, well, you get to see how I feel, but I think I learned from a very early age that I have this outlet and I loved it. So I have diaries and books and poetry books from since I was like 6.
Wow.
There's a red one that I'm still seeing in my head that I remember I got in trouble with because when I used to write poems, I used to write where I wrote them. And there was one that I wrote at church, and my mother saw it, and she was like, "That's what you go to church to do?" And I get in trouble for that. But it's just always been my preferred mode of expression. It's a power to me. Like, nobody could tell you what to write, how to feel. You could say whatever you want. You could abuse whoever you want. You could do whatever, and then throw it away if you want to. Save it if you want to. To me, that felt like a lot of power, and I just gravitated to that.
And I never thought of the way you framed it. Never thought about it like in terms of it's almost like a full creative outlet. Creatively a full expressive outlet in terms of, you could put whatever you want on that page. If you find yourself in a little corner or whatever, some privacy. And no interruption. You don't have to be bouncing back and forth in a discussion type thing. So you get the freedom to really just vent. And then you could determine if the venting was the purpose, or if there's something that you want to keep, or if you just want to just discard the event and just
Yeah,
move on.
totally up to you. You get to decide if you want to share it, whether you want to throw it away. You might decide to leave it somewhere so that somebody could see because you're afraid to initiate a conversation, things like that. I just always saw it as power. And even to say, I know Veronica does journals as well. Like there is a lot of research about journaling now where psychologists are saying you get the power of a conversation from journaling because your brain doesn't recognize that you're not talking to a specific person.
True.
So if you feel lonely, that's why journaling is so powerful, because your brain doesn't know that you're not talking to somebody. So it's a way for you to quietly express whatever you're feeling, and you get to decide what you do with it afterwards.
Yeah, and I utilize, so I write a lot as well, personally, but I've never gotten into the journaling aspect of it. But I use journals in different ways, mostly for just keeping track of things and making notes and that type of stuff. I always feel, and persons who know me know I'm in the digital space primarily, but there's always a different feel to writing in a book than typing on a...
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And,
yeah.
Unless you're really into it, some people may not appreciate that. There is a definite difference. So I always have books that I could just write in, and I could never personally just write on a page without scribbling. So I'm a writer scribbler. But even if it is like 80% of this stuff I write is work related, like just tasks and notes from meetings and stuff. But even with that, while I'm thinking about something, I'm just doing some sort of scribbling. So I think, and it's much harder to do that. I raise that because it's much harder to do that if you're on a device, to just kind of in the margin scribble up something, because that's still, your mind is still working, and so you're not limited to just writing text or letters or whatever it is. You can also scribble. So journaling, I encourage persons to, if you haven't, consider a journal. Like she said, Veronica has a number of journals, and we could speak about where to get your books, your journals, the other publications later on in the program. Speaking of books, June, which is a few days away actually, begins, well, it's celebrated as Read Caribbean Month. So we have a whole month, Read Caribbean, so this should be good for you all. So how important do you think it is that people, especially women, in the case of your books, have access to stories written by Caribbean writers and authors? How important do you think that is?
Want me to go?
Yeah.
I feel very strongly about this. In my line of work, in intellectual property, I realized that it seems like men feel more comfortable publishing than women. Men seem not to question whether or not they want to write a book. Men know that they're going to write a book, they just don't know how to get the book written, or how to get it published. But women, for some reason, always question. I could promise you, Veronica questioned before she wrote that book, question whether I should do it, question if anybody's going to read it, question is who going to buy it, how am I going to pay for it. Like, I just from my experience dealing with creatives, I find that women are far more hesitant to publish and come forward with their stories. But that just means that we're going to have a library, a collection of works that are out there that don't really reflect the full gamut of our human experience. When you think about slavery, what if, and I'm just saying this in a very light way, really, but what if the slaves wrote more stories? That we could appreciate what they went through, what they were feeling, what the experiences were like. I feel like if we had access to those stories back then, it would impact the way that we see ourselves and how we shape our identities today. But if we don't write them, if we don't record them in perpetual ways that are going to outlive us, then our stories are going to get lost, and people are just going to fill in the gaps with whatever is out there. So, for example, I always say, you know, I'm not a person who is into carnival and troops and all these things. But if you Google St. Kitts culture, for the plethora of videos that you have of carnival and whining in the streets and the costumes with the thongs and all these things, I mean, more power to you. But that's what's going to be a reflection of me if I don't write my story.
True.
If I don't also curate and document my experience. So I think that's something that as women we need to do more of, because our stories are important, they are necessary. We need that bridge so that men could understand us as well.
Absolutely.
Our children could understand us as well. And I think because we hold so much and we hold so much close to our hearts, that we rob the rest of society from understanding what we go through and giving us empathy and giving us care and giving us, the support that we really deserve. People generally think, I think that women are strong and they can handle anything. We're tired of handling everything. Tired of handling everything. We want more support. But in order to say that you want more support, it might literally mean you have to stop doing something in order to say that, and in order to really advocate for yourself. And if nobody's going to advocate for us, how can we really expect change? So I think that's where writing, especially for the longevity of it, this book is going to be here when I die.
True.
Videos on YouTube, we don't know. That's up to the owners of YouTube. So that's why I'm also very big on books, because they are going to outlive us.
Right. And it is, just before I get to Veronica, it is one of those things, just speaking from the physical book aspect, where there was a thought, I guess, a few years back that books were going to be in serious danger in terms of, like, nobody's going to be buying books and reading books. And shout out to Bougainvillea, who is a sponsor, second half, Sarah Owen, working towards having outlets where you can have access to physical books. And speaking of access, I would, in addition to what you're going to say, Veronica, you mentioned earlier that you had which I thought was very interesting, you had a library in Tabernacle. So if you could speak about that, because that obviously would have been, you mentioned a few authors, etc. I think there were female authors, but some of them. But in terms of what brought you out, carried you to that point where you thought, we need a library in this space. And how did you go about setting it up?
You know, that a library was something I always wanted. It was on the bucket list, and it was something that I always. But I was always a reader. I don't read as much now because I'm on the machine sewing. But I've always been a reader, and I wanted my children to read. So when I talked to my Uncle David, he's still rest in peace, and I was telling him I want to do a library. I mean, we have a school in the community, but a lot of children was going on the outside of the school, other village schools, and it was just a way to get the children together. So even though, and most of the books, like, we used to get sponsors for books, like people send books, like, Hardy Boys and those kind of things. But then I realized that the generation didn't understand those kind of books. And then, so what I used to do, most of the books in the library were brand new books, and books that has on black children on the books. So it wasn't just normal books. So, it had the little princess books or whatever, but most of the books were books that the children looked like the children.
The representation was there.
Yeah, yes. Right. And I always believe in that but those used to be the most expensive books. I just don't even understand. And so it just wasn't coming library. We had people come in and speak to them. One time Sasha the artist came in and they all painted. They Get So Bloom came in and they decorated cupcakes. So it was just, we had people come in and they did music. So it wasn't just about they just come in and we just read, but the importance of reading, and then we used to have a little competition, like spelling bees and those kind of things, fun things that they could just come and have a Saturday morning and they come and we do things. But it was really about getting children to read. Like I had children and I wanted them to read more. I don't know if any of them pick up my reading habit. My son pick up my reading habits. But it was just an avenue for children to come and to enjoy books. I know we say, you know, they could go on Kindle and they could have books, but I cannot read online. I have to have the book in my hand. And then I tried it with my son, and I was like, oh no, he watching YouTube still. And I was like, I ain't working. But the physical book, to have a physical book where you could smell and you could put up your foot and you could turn the pages. So, but we were there for 5 years, and it was just an experience to see. I have these children who used to come library, finish with college. I was like, what?
Nice.
So, and then what we used to do, we used to give scholarships. So we used to do like a little fun day. We raised funds and we had scholarships. The year before, just before COVID came, we had a sponsor where all the children at the library got devices. They got tablets. So like,
wow.
No, COVID came and they had a device. So it was really fulfilling to see that we were able. We had to close because of certain situations and things like that. So we gave away most of the books to the school. We donated them to the school. But it was a 5-year experience of like, wow, these children, like I remember a time they had teachers appreciation, and these children do a whole show for me, like, I'm not a teacher, I'm just here. But you could see the creativity in them, you could see the things that they want to do, like we used to talk about things like what they want to do when you grow up. And I remember this little boy said he wanted to be a bus driver, and the other children was laughing at him. I said, you know, you can't laugh at it, but if being on a bus driver, how are we gonna go town? But it was a really great venture. We had people on board who would help, who would donate books, donate monies, you know, different things for us.
I mean, I think that's a tremendous initiative that you had undertaken about 5 years ago. So major kudos. Like I said, I had no idea about that. And I mean, that to me should be a template. Not that it hasn't happened in some instances way back when over the years, but it should be, because you're a young person and you took on this initiative in your community. And I think Gian would have spoken about this in different fora in terms of having spaces, spaces to share, spaces to connect, and what better avenue and location than in your very community. So it would be encouraging for me to see, hopefully this reaches persons who are thinking about, you know, what can I do in my community, and this is, you know, if you have space or people come together and say, that space, we could just have a little room, get some books, invite some children over, have a community setting where not just about reading, but socializing, networking, activities, you know, just...
And there's where you could tell stories also. I mean, as Julian was talking about, writing on the stories. And it's true, you know, we don't have any stories of like, so many things has lost because no one write it down. So many things have lost.
We're going to take a break, possibly, or not. But we'll take a break in a few minutes. But before that, so as Jian was mentioning, and you echoed Veronica, in terms of, I can't remember the name of the, was it Babi or with the Carib Indian, the Bloody Point. There was
Babi.
Babi, right? So even like stories, because we hear about it, I don't know if we ever got the perspective from Babi's side, etc. Not that maybe it would have changed anything, but it would be nice to have had more of a well-rounded story around that area. And countless other women throughout in the political scene, in terms of social advocacy, etc., where their stories haven't been told or shared widely enough. It may have been shared in a small circle, but nobody really maybe penned it so that it is something that is easy to share. So now we will take a break and be back in a few. Again, this first half of Creative Voices is brought to us by Rams and TDC.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Let's stop child sexual abuse. The age of consent is 16, yet our 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, and 10-year-olds are becoming victims of sexual abuse and exploitation, which is being forced into sexual activity before they are old enough to decide. This causes mental, emotional, and physical harm to our children. Parents, it is your responsibility to protect and to educate your children. Develop a relationship of trust with your child. If they trust you, they will tell you. Child sexual abuse cannot be our norm. We must work together to correct this. Help us prevent, help us protect, help us prosecute. A message by the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services. Contact us at 467-1311 or 662-6833 for more information.
If you need insurance, our service is the best. Home motor insurance can give you more for less. Property insurance can save you a lot of stress. At TDC Insurance Company Limited, we care about your investment. Guarantee you peace of mind. The best team in the business. Guarantee you peace of mind. No other company will guarantee you peace of mind. Together we'll succeed and guarantee you peace of mind. TDC Insurance Company Limited, where you get more coverage for less.
Rams the good food people, always there to serve you. Rams the good food people, locations right near you. Rams the good food people, in-store specials for you. Rams the good food people. Rams. When you need better service, Rams is always here. Better value, better prices. Rams is always here. Rewarding your loyalty. Rams is always here. We are community. We are family. We are family. Rams for you and me. We are community. Rams for you and me.
All right, welcome back. And Gianna mentioned something earlier that I think was quite profound. I didn't want to just let her off the hook.
Wow.
Just so. So even if you have to bring a little heat to it, in terms of the divergence to some degree between men and women when it comes to sticking to publishing, where it appears men may just decide that they're going to go and publish, and in some cases, or in many cases, some women may second guess. They have things to share, but they may second guess the intent to actually make the step. So if you want to speak a bit more to, in your opinion, the whys of where we are at in that creative space, you think?
I think we've been socialized that way. Men tend to have their fearlessness seems to have been encouraged or at least allowed,
Okay.
with far less consequence than women. So boys were, allowed to go run and play, but girls can't leave, mom's eyesight. So, and unfortunately, that control that a lot of our society has had on women has kind of been embedded in the psyche, I think, where we're always taught to look for danger. We're always taught to think about what could go wrong. We're always taught about bringing shame, for some people who might, don't bring no baby in here before you graduate or something like that. I think we have that shame, that fear, that anxiety, and also there's also the notion of support as well. Men perhaps are more, again, because of the fearlessness, you're willing to take a chance on something. But for a woman who may have to, support family, you can't be so fearless because you have to think about the welfare of those who are depending on you for life and sustenance. So it's just the fearlessness, I think, that we've not been given or encouraged to have as women. That's what I think it all boils down to. But the ones of us, and I will say the ones of us who have actually been taught, and I actually credit my fearlessness to my father, to not worry about that stuff. Of course you have to be careful, of course, but who cares what people say? Who cares if you write a book and nobody buys it? It's out there. You never know.
Right.
Think about the possibilities. That's something he always encouraged me. Think about the good possibilities. Think about it can work rather than always focusing on it might not work and nobody might buy it.
Right.
So I think that kind of energy is what we need to really inject our girls with more. Be more fearless. Be more bold. Say what's on your mind. Understand what it feels like when you say something and somebody doesn't like it. Understand what that feels like inside your body, but then go do what you want still.
Right.
You are going to disappoint people, but how do you feel about yourself? How does God feel about you? How do your parents feel about you? Focus on what matters, and the rest will just fall to the wayside.
And that was so difficult for me because I've learned that in my 30s, and then I learned that in my 30s, but I pushed my children because then I decided, well, I want my children to know when they start something, they finish it. I want them to know that there's nothing out there that you can't do.
Right.
But I didn't get that, but I decided that my children are going to have that.
Mm-hmm.
So even like sometimes we home and my daughter would like, okay, mommy, I want to tell you something, but she kind of afraid to tell me. I said, write it in your journal and read it anyhow.
Yeah. But even you, though, I always see you, I'm like, shake out to this modesty thing. You're so talented. Stop hiding it. And like, oh, this little bag business. It's not a business. It's serious. It has so much potential, to take you far. So, like I always tell her, stop talking so small about yourself.
Big things, man. Big things.
And I am learning, and I guess, and that is why stories are so important, because then, for the things that I've been through when I was younger and as a young adult, and then I am afraid, and then I'm afraid of that, and I'm afraid of that coming out, and then afraid to really, like, I want to tell my story, but afraid, like, what if so and so? So like, and that kind of embedded in me, and I have to learn to draw it out. Like, people would say, Veronica, but you're so confident. But there are different stages of confidence. So you might see me confident and move confident, but sometimes when I go home, I feel not so confident because of
all
the
of
little
us,
stuff, with the little stuff that I've been through. But then now I am learning, because I want it to be different for my children.
Mm-hmm.
That I just tell my children, be loud. Mm-hmm. Whenever you want, I have a 23-year-old, and I tell her, be loud. If you feel like you want to do this, do it. Yeah. And if you fail, we pivot and we do something else.
Exactly.
Like, do it.
Yeah.
But that is from, because I didn't have that. I'm trying to instill that in them, to make sure that they get it, so it pass on, so it moves generation to generation and gets better and gets better. But this 2025 has stopped this small.
All right.
Amen.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think it's also some of it can be cultural. Where we have this term, you're boasting.
Oh yeah,
whatever.
I've enough.
Right, or you're enough, right.
It's like my whole life. I'm hearing that.
So it is one of those things where you have to have I won't say a strong heart, but just understand what the consequence may not be the right term, but the consequence may be for kind of stepping out into the spotlight and saying, well, this is me, this is take it or leave it, this is...
But Ron, the analogy that I like to give about these things, somebody says something, it's like they threw a ball at you. You catch it. Every single thing that happens after that is in your control. You could drop it.
Right.
You could throw it back. But a lot of us hold it
You
and claim
could dodge
it.
too.
Yeah,
Catch it.
I mean, but if you, you could
yeah.
do all sorts of things, but the whole thing is after it has left them and it has come to you,
Yeah.
you have 100% control over what happens after that.
Right.
Because, and sometimes maybe because of who threw it, how heavy the ball is, it really hit you, it really bother you. So maybe you put down the ball and look after yourself. And every time you're gonna be strong and say, throw it back. You sometimes the ball is hit hard and it really bother you, and some of us holding on to pains from childhood. But we have to understand you have 100% control
We got it.
over what happens after that.
And that's a great point. And again, Jihan's creative mind always working in terms of shaping and telling, like explaining how she explains these things. That's a story by itself, you know. And it's said in a way that that could be a children's book in terms of. I'm serious.
That's on the list too. That's
okay,
on the list.
So let me not inadvertently blow up the spot. But I think stuff like that is, while the academics, the academic aspects are important in primary preschool, sharing things like that where it speaks to self-esteem, self-worth, etc., and self-control. I think those things are super important as young as possible, where we think young people can understand and appreciate those type of things and have them shaped. Again, this is where literary and creative minds and talent come into play. You shape something as a thin subset of the curriculum, where you have the English teacher, the sharing, and say let's play, and not just speaking about it, but then making it interactive. Have a few of the students. I'm segueing a little bit. That's how I do it. But have a few students lined up, and they're throwing the ball at each other, and say, okay, what do you want to do with the ball? And then just making it creative and interactive. But it all starts with writing it down, mapping it out. How will it work? And as she just explained it, you could visualize. Everybody knows a ball. You catch a ball. What do you do with it?
It's easy to understand.
And it's easy to understand, exactly. So, speaking of, and I'll just abstain from. I think you ladies have touched on it clearly enough. I'll abstain from adding any additional points from a male's perspective. No, I think no, it is.
No, we're claiming this space.
Yes,
today.
yes.
Thank you.
Plant your flag and stand proud, man.
Today, yes.
Yeah, I ain't stepping over there at all. But I think the point of being proud of your talents and because what someone may be determined as being boasting, it may actually, in actual objective terms, would not be boasting. You're just you're sharing your capabilities.
Being authentic.
Yeah, this is what I can do. This is what I have done. I think it's great. End the story. You may have a different opinion. That's fine. And then we could work through it. But this is just my viewpoint. I've created something. I presented something, and I am super proud of it. I understand that it may not be quote unquote perfect, or there may be adjustments. It could be made better, and I'm here for the journey. This is not a one-off, and if it's a one-off, then so be it. But you have time to adjust, improve, iterate. If it is something that you think would require some improvement, but just be proud of who you are, what you can do. It's not that my issue in terms of terms. People who may be terming boasting, and I've been called that from time to time as well over the course of the years. Sometimes just without me even saying anything. But is when it shouldn't. What I would advise to people is, you promoting your stuff. Don't think you have to downplay somebody else's work to promote your stuff. That is always a red flag for me. Be proud of what you've done, but don't think that in order for you to advance, you have to pull down or pull back somebody else's work.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. So, are we due for a break, Flames? I think by now, a break. No. Okay. So we'll chat along a bit. So, author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie from Nigeria warns that if we only hear a single story about a person or country, we risk misunderstanding and oversimplifying their experiences. So what are your thoughts on what she terms the danger of a single story. Because Gian touched on it a little bit in terms of, if you do think it's Nevis culture, you may see the single lens of what it may be and take that away as, okay, that's what they're about. So what do you think the dangers are of a single story in terms of,
It's like I said, it's dangerous because it is inaccurate. It's an inaccurate representation of the whole. So the videos that we see in Carnival are absolutely true. There are people who live for this. There are people who love it. This is those videos are an absolute reflection of what they love, what they do, that time of year for them. December every year, I am in my bed.
Right.
Me too.
I am in my bed. This is my time
but,
to rest. This is my time to go to the beach. This is my time to really relax. But people may say that there is no story in that. But one time I've always said, I wonder if we start a activity for non-fetters, if people would come, because when you even think about the way that entertainment is kind of shaped in St. Kitts and Nevis, it's like for the same group of people all the time.
Hard.
It's the
even
same.
for people who do little experiences, like I do experience sip and tote. It's hard to get people to come to those things. Anna does a series of BAM and Bond.
It's not hard. And I will tell because your experiences are exactly what I think are missing in terms of activities for people to do. There is a cross section of St. Kitts who is home.
That's true.
And I personally feel that cross section is very big. So people need to start to build those kind of experiences to draw us out.
So you think that it's just
so
a matter
experience
of time?
it's a lot of awareness. It's what would I call it? Because trust me, I've seen yours. I've seen Anna's BAM and Bond event, and every time I see it, I say I want to go, and then I forget. So it's like I don't know. We really have to start to cater to like different interests and so on. So it's gonna be hard to get you guys. I mean, maybe you're gonna have to individually invite people, remind me, or stuff, things like that. But but the single story thing is just it's an inaccurate representation of the whole. And it means then that there are true stories, real stories that other people could connect to. I would have never known December Veronica is a homebody as well, because maybe we could go for breakfast or something like that. We ain't going town. We ain't going in Bastia at all. We gonna go somewhere on the outskirts, have breakfast, just chill.
Just sip on the beach.
And there are people who could connect with that.
Absolutely.
So it's important for us to consider the whole. Yeah.
All right, so we'll get back to the single story. We'll just take a quick break because I think that there's some more we could add to this. So we'll have a quick break and be right back.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Let's get real on WinFM. Hi, this is Lavi. Let's get real Wednesday nights at 8 on WinFM. Get ready for an hour of real talk that will keep you engaged and informed, bringing you insights, the hottest topics of the moment, and perspectives that matter from the runway to the political arena. Real talk with Lavi covers all. Let's get real Wednesday nights at 8 on WinFM.
Let TDC Financial Services help you go for your goals. Whether you're thinking of taking that grand vacation, down payment on a house, higher education, TDC Financial Services has various plans that will allow you to go for your goals. Choose from the Accumulator Plus, Investment Starter Plan, and Fixed Deposit. Ready to go for your goals? Visit us at TDC Financial Services, where money is made easy.
All right, welcome back. We were talking about the danger of a single story, and what came to mind for me was from on the country level. Uh, we're in Sugar City. Sugar City St. Kitts. That itself was a single story where we were framed only for quite a while through the lens of being a sugar producing entity, when obviously there is and always has been a lot more to share as relates to being a Kittitian and a vision. So there is a danger. I mean, sometimes we can utilize it to our advantage, but there is often an inclination for persons to, even on an individual basis, you see Gian, you may say, well, Gian is a poet, and that's all you know Gian to be, the poet, as from a creative endeavor standpoint. Veronica, if the first time I was introduced to you was as from the sassy standpoint on the bags, and then you're telling me you're a poet, you're writing things, I'm like, girl, what are you trying to do? You know what I mean? So sometimes, a lot of times, really, the persons in the creative space, is very rarely that anyone in the creative space, even they're super talented with this specific area, there's still more to them than just that.
Yep.
But for whatever reason, this danger of maybe excelling in a specific area, you do it so well that people just, they want to hold you and just remember you in that specific space. They don't crowd it. Don't crowd it for me. I just know that this is what you're great at, and maybe eventually I come around to something else, but I only want to know you for that. And so that is the danger where we just kind of, sometimes as creatives, box into a specific avenue and not allowed or invited to expand or share more than what is known or what we're known for. Anything you want to add to that?
I think you just perfectly described my dilemma as a, when I wrote the book, I started a Facebook page, and I started at first, just sharing stuff about me. But I was going all over the place because I'm doing IP, I'm doing poetry, I'm talking about miscarriage, I'm talking about creativity, all sorts of different things. And someone had mentioned to me, like, if you're gonna be promoting your book, you need to talk about only miscarriage. And I was like, do you understand how difficult it is to talk about that one? And to then force me to kind of keep me in that mindset all the time is not really conducive to me. Right. So I found in trying to find a niche, I just went dead. There are so many moments on, posting. You might see me post in January, then I post in April, then I get a burst, and I post 3 times in May, then see you again October. Just like, because I feel like, people expect one side of you, but it's very difficult for me. And even when I was publishing my book, and I knew I wanted to do self-publishing, so I knew I had to find a name for, like my publishing company. Outside of the obvious Bouncing Daughter Publishing, being my father, there's also the notion of me feeling like I'm always bouncing between exploits, and I'm bouncing between law, and I'm bouncing between creativity, and it's like because that's me. I'm all over all the time, and even today I'm like answering messages about cannabis, and then I'm answering about echo, and then I'm answering about miscarriage, and it's like, it's confusing sometimes. So I think that is it fun? It's just my life. It's just my life. I enjoy some aspects of it.
You've accepted that while it's not necessarily something you intently went to have all these multiple aspects of Jihan, but you accept that that is who you are.
It is. I can't run from it. I really can't run from it. And there are opportunities that have come to me because simply of how I handle things. So it's not that, somebody's looking for a lawyer. They remember how the lawyer spoke so passionately about this, so they want that lawyer. So I think that's something that we need to embrace. I'm really trying. I'm really trying to find an angle to, have this social media presence, but it is the most difficult thing that I've done in terms of creating content. Like, you're gonna be all over the place with me. You will be all over the place with me, because unfortunately or fortunately, that's how life has been, and I believe in being authentic. So authentically, I'm all over the place.
And we probably all three peas in a pod in that regard, I would imagine, because because when you just spoke about the niche, pursuing the niche approach, I think it was so difficult for you because, as I say, it wasn't natural. It wasn't, your body and yourself could feel like, what are you trying to do? This is not, this doesn't work. This is not, no. So, and the painful thing is that business-wise, it would make sense to channel your energy in a niche and go hard and so on. And you have to be prepared to sacrifice like 90% of who you are to kind of just now shift and turn it over to pour in all that into the 10%, which is a specific niche. And maybe you achieve some level of success because all the energy is pushed to that and you go hard on it. But then I believe over time it has a draining effect. And then you crash eventually, because it may not happen to everyone, but it is a likely expectation that when your being is kind of understanding that you're not just one element. You have a lot of different things that kind of presses your button, right? And you're just ignoring it because society or whatever the business practices are say that this is how you should do it. And it just doesn't feel natural. I myself have had that similar experience. I don't know if you want to speak on that as well.
Well, 10 years ago when I decided to name my business, it was a sassy, but I was like, okay then. Because I don't think I'm going to just stay in doing just bags, because the writing thing used to be always in the back of my mind. And I decided, let's do collectibles, because then I could dabble in, it could be this one business, but then I could dabble in inspiring confidence and self-care. So like I feel like I'm all over the place too, because I just be doing t-shirts, I start to sip and totes, we do journals, I write a book, and still doing skincare.
Now, I think it makes sense from a business standpoint, and I may be wrong, but just from my perspective, I think it makes sense to eventually have someone who is passionate on the business side and passionate about your creative endeavors to be like, okay, I want to partner with you in terms of the business side of things in this area. So I'm prepared to come on and just handle everything as it relates to business for your bags. You just focus on the creative aspects of it and leave the business pushing to me. Of course, not that your hands off on the business, but you can now have more creative freedom to push into the other stuff.
And that is the problem with solo entrepreneurs too, because we do everything. Like I home early morning, 4 o'clock, I home doing videos and content, I still sewing, I still like so many different things, but then that is what I like to do. I like to when I go home and when I home and I got the ideas.
You love to create and explore.
I love the creativity, but then I still have to do the bookkeeping and which drains me. But I got to do it still.
Yeah, you have to at this point anyway.
So I'm trying to work on a system, but I'm really working on the system, because I was like, okay, let's make all that I need to make for a collection and have it there, and then we work on it, and I could work on the business side. But then the idea just come to your head and you got to go back randomly.
I was about to say, in the creative space, you don't know where inspiration is gonna come and when it's gonna come. And it's for you, and the hardest thing is for you when you know inspiration is like pulling you. And you're not gonna just fall into it and just go and ride the wave. You're gonna be like, I got this other thing to do. But inspiration calling, you know, if the window will open up again.
But I just drop everything. When inspiration there, I drop sleep, I drop everything. And we can pick it up again sometime. But then it's so difficult. And now with the content creator, you got to always have content. Like, oh my God, it's a lot. It's a lot. And my daughter do content creating for small businesses, and then
Okay.
maybe amazing mother, you know, if I could get a big discount. Because then it takes away from you having to do the content because you have somebody else to do it
Of
for you,
course,
so you
right.
could concentrate on other things. But then as a woman, sometimes, you know, you got your own mind of how you want it.
You want it,
Yeah.
and it has to look the
And
way
it has
that I
look the
want
way
it
that
to
you
look.
want it,
Yes.
and then you don't want to be stressing somebody, say, oh, not this way, not that way. So then it still goes to, it's a lot. It's
No,
a lot.
definitely. And so speaking of that, if you had to choose one creative outlet as your favorite, what would it be and why?
Well, it's easy for me because I can say writing because that's all I do. I can't draw, I can't sew, I can't do any of that. I can't do any of
But
that
have
stuff.
you tried?
Yeah, but
Okay.
there's no
Alright, okay.
interest. I would like to learn to sew though because I feel like people don't
think
make
that's a life
clothes
skill.
that I not sew. Of course, I could do like men's stuff, but I can't make a dress. Like I would love to learn how to do that because I feel like clothes don't fit me the way that I want it to fit, and my style seems very hard to capture. So I would love to be able to do it myself and not have to just settle for something that kind of look
That's
good.
that's
Yeah.
But and
For me,
yeah. But before we get to you, Veronica, just to kind of piggyback on what Jan just said in terms of, because I feel like as a society, I'm gonna preach just a little bit here. But I feel like as a society that a lot of things that we had to do in the past just from as an aspect of necessity. Just about not even just every village, maybe every few streets had one or two persons who was sewing, just because they couldn't afford to buy clothes. So you just had to learn to sew. And I just feel like that is like such an essential life skill. I don't know, my mother was a seamstress. She sewed since she was a teenager. I don't know the first thing about sewing. I wish I knew how to sew because sometimes I have ideas for. So maybe when I'm 16, I can lift up a scissors. That's when I'll go into it. But
you know, most women back then, our parents, all they could have said.
But that's what I'm saying. It was so, to me, that's a life skill that, and not just for
Oh,
women,
it's a necessity.
but right.
Yeah.
But it is an essential life skill in terms of where, and you have this thing with fast fashion and everything else now, which there's a lot of negativity around that. But if we had more persons, and like I said, I'm not just talking about women, boys and girls learning at an early age, just certain key core life skills. So, and you don't have to be a great seamstress or tailor or whatever, but you know how to just make a basic whatever it is. And you determine if it's something you want to continue, but that skill is with you forever, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Well, I think, you know, I can't make clothes.
Well, I guess as you say, YouTube University now, if you
Yeah, there
really
you go.
want to.
Because my daughter, I have a 16-year-old, and I was like, me paying nobody to make no clown suit. And you know that child learn to make she own clown suit till she make one for she friend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like.
And clown suit ain't cheaper. So if she can do a pretty
So
decent
what I
clown
did for her
suit.
birthday, I bought her own sewing machine so she could keep
There
off of
you
mine.
go.
So I tell her, well, if you want to do this, go ahead and do it. I mean, and I tell her that if you decide a year from now you want to sell the machine, can you ain't into that? I mean, you tried it, you did it. I mean,
Right. Right. That's a part of the journey. So
Part of the
your
journey.
creative outlet is what and why? You spoke about inspiration earlier.
No,
and it hits
she
you.
got options. I could just write. That's all.
well, to be honest, like for the past few years, I haven't like I've written things, but not as much because I'm into the sewing. I'm into that creative part of the aspect because this book now is something that I wrote when I was like 21. I mean, I'm 26 now, being
26, yeah.
I
But
thought you were
those
22.
are stories. but these are stories that I wrote. Like I was telling my children, when I die and I'm going to die famous, they could take the stories and they could make money from them because they're still.
Lots of stories.
But the sewing, the designer aspect of it is what I really, really, really love, surprisingly.
Okay, excellent. So we're going to take a quick break again, and this second half of Creative Voices is brought by our kind friends at Bougainvillea Books and Gifts. Speak a little bit about that, and Horsewords. Thank you.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Welcome to Bougainvillea Books and Gifts, where every visit is a journey through time and imagination. Step into a world of literary wonders at our boutique bookstore, where every book tells a story and every corner holds a treasure waiting to be discovered. Immerse yourself in the enchanting aromas of our scented candles, perfect for creating a cozy atmosphere in any space. Explore our exquisite handcrafted jewelry, whether you're searching for the perfect gift for that special someone or simply indulging in a little self-care. Bougainvillea Books and Gifts has something for everyone.
Supermarket shoppers understand that convenience matters. At Hortsport's Value Mart IGA, we know that price matters most. Ample parking and the widest variety matter. At Hortsport's Value Mart IGA, we know that price matters most. Clean, spacious aisles and the highest level of customer service all matter. At Hortsport's Value Mart IGA, price matters most. We've renewed our commitment to guarantee the lowest prices in the Federation. Why? Because we understand that in this tough economic environment, price matters most. Shop smart. Shop Value Mart, where price matters most. Farms Estate Nevis and Wellington Road, St. Kitts.
Price matters most.
All right, we're back. Thanks for returning listeners and viewers. And so we spoke about creative outlets. But what's something unusual about your creative process that people may not know? If you care to share, if you can share. Something unusual about the whole process.
I don't know if mine is unusual, but I
Do you write
realize,
upside down?
No, I think there is something about the hours of 3 to 7 a.m. that work very well for me. And there's also lots of poems that I wrote while listening to instrumentals.
Okay.
Like sometimes I know what I want to write, but then like I would know I want to write about something, but then sometimes you hear like a particular type of music that helps with, I don't know, like it captures what you're feeling. So I I think I am inspired by music as well while writing. But maybe the most unusual thing, because I don't think anything I do is unusual, but that 3 to 7 a.m. window for me is my favorite.
So is it, so just to dig a little deeper into that, so is it that you're generally an early riser, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's
and
not like
it's the quiet. I think it's the quiet as well that
okay,
really
that makes
helps.
sense.
Yeah.
So you have a clear head, a blank canvas, so to speak. But when it comes to the instrumentals, do you, is it that when you're writing, you're kind of reciting, going to the melody, or is it just a calming thing?
It's not.
Okay.
It's somehow. There are some things that I could think of, some pieces that I wrote that were very uncomfortable to write, but somehow it's like the beat of the music continues to keep going. Like don't stop, don't give up, don't pull back.
Okay.
Like just keep it in loop, and because maybe the instrumental has like a very strong or powerful beat to it, so it's like I have to keep going, I have to keep going. So that's something I tend to do when I want to write about something that I know is difficult. I usually listen to music at the same time.
Excellent.
I'm not sure if there's anything.
No?
But what's strange is that every time I'm sewing, I'm watching I'm watching movies. I don't know if that's but it does. But I like to watch those things that have me a little bit emotional. Depending on the design that I'm emotional, I'm really putting in my all into it. But I don't think there's anything really strange. I just work any hour of the night once the inspiration is there. I work any other night, but I'm always watching something like a Transformers, but don't tell them about it.
But funnily for me, I think there was a period where I got tired of writing. I got tired of people asking me to write. And I think maybe it was around the time when Island Expressions was really, well, I wouldn't say really high, but when we were kind of closing off, it's like somebody always want you to perform somewhere, and it's like, oh, they could come, oh, you could come and do any poem, and it's like, no, but you talking about flowers. Why would you come and do a poem about politics?
or whatever.
You know,
Yeah.
something. So I started to feel like I was forcing myself to write. So I stopped. I stopped. I took a break. I stopped performing. I stopped writing. I just didn't feel like what was coming out of me was mine.
Got you.
Like, did this belong to other people? No, I may want it no more. But I think after a period of that, it just kind of came back naturally. But I still, there are things that I've written that I've never shared, I've never performed, and I don't think I want to. Like, I want to
It's yours.
keep it to myself, because I felt like I had belonged to people for a while. Like, I don't want that feeling again. So I need to keep something for myself.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So,
But you know, Rodney, what I think, if I could, there's something that I'm seeing here in both of our stories, and I think when I spoke to Sarah about the show, I was seeing very clearly about using your experiences or using creativity to draw out your experiences and deal with experiences. I would love to know more about Veronica's book. We talk about her bag a lot, so
True.
if I could actually insert that question, I would love to hear more about her book.
So this was something like, I got a child very young at 18, and it was a battle of finding myself. Because I think that I was looking for myself in other people. I think I was looking for myself, not knowing who I am, and going through these little things of adult things at a younger age than most people, and it was just really just trying to find myself, where I fit in, which I don't fit nowhere.
That's okay.
And just the journey of, relationships, not really had a great relationship with parents, and how do I navigate these relationships so I can be a better parent? Because now the children here, and I have to do better, I have to be better, and I have to be a better example, that it changes the dynamics of she falling into my footsteps, or doing the same thing that I did, or doing something that my grandmother did. So it was just how I felt about myself, and that's why I didn't like sharing it, because it's all me. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I understand.
It's all me, and then to share me.
As Jan was just saying, you're sharing. It's called Pieces of Me, right?
Yeah.
So it's just sharing, like, and I had like hundreds of these poems, and I just decided a few, because I was kind of watching, like, the judgment of what people would think, because I know that I have a story. I have been.
I just throw the ball. I just throw the ball, and you hold on to it.
Of growing up thinking that I wasn't enough, and then not wanting my children to ever feel that way. Growing up, when I was a child, I was molested. So growing up with that in my mind, like, and how do I tell this story? So like I want to write this story, but how do I tell this story that, I don't offend people? But it don't matter if my story is going to offend people. So the poems are little ways and means of bringing it out a little bit without really bringing it out. So it's just all me, and I was scared, like, when we had the book reading at Bougainvillea, like, I was so glad a lot of people showed up, because it was just I was like, Lord, just send the right amount, because I was just scared to really, because when you read it, you read in Veronica, you read in about Veronica life, you read it, it's just about not the sassy girl where you see which high heel shoes down the road, it's pieces of who I am.
Right. So all sides, the vulnerability, the journey, etc. Yeah. And you, as you mentioned, you left out a few, well, maybe more than a few pieces. So this is not, I imagine, the last publication. And sometimes you just need to jump off the cliff get it
Just
started.
jump.
Just do a jump, yeah.
Be a
And
man
then
and jump.
no, not be a man. No, it's, what you trying? Listen, listen. No, you just being a brave person.
Yes.
Sometimes crazy, because people look at it and say, "Well, that's person jumping off." I mean, you only got a little parachute and you're jumping off of that. But sometimes I am in full support of being crazy in the creative space. Sometimes we, as opposed to, if we had to choose between conservative and crazy, I'm crazy all the time in terms of from a creative standpoint. So, but it's so proud of you getting the process started, and it's understandable that because it's so personal, you may not feel, well, you may have felt that you didn't want to share too much, but there's now you're going through the process, you understand what it entails, and you may determine when the future publications are prepared to share a bit more. Right. And
Yeah.
speaking of that, so staying on the topic of books, I don't know if Jihan wants to kind of shed some light in terms of her publication.
Well, we can't be talking about getting personal. I mean, I
Talk
have
about-
shared my
right,
whole
right.
personal life here. It's crazy. I remember when I wrote and before I published, I shared it with some people to get their feedback. I was very adamant that I was going to publish, by the way.
Okay.
And like I said, I chose to self-publish because I wanted 100% control over the process.
Right.
I didn't want to go ask any company to publish for me, or I was 0% open to suggestion. This
Okay.
is my story. It will come out how I want it. But shared, get some feedback. What stuck out to you? Is this something you think would bring value to people? And the feedback was mostly positive.
Okay.
The person who was least, certainly not supportive, but scared,
Okay.
was my mother. You sure you want to put this your personal life? You're telling people that you've been trying to get pregnant for 4 years and you haven't been successful. You're telling people about your experiences with trying to get pregnant and not getting pregnant and then finally getting pregnant and losing the baby, and the perception that surrounds women who don't have children and things like that. And I was like, but it's the truth. It's my story. It's the truth. And I know I'm not the only person who's been through this experience. But what was extremely helpful to me going through that experience was people who went through the experience telling me about their experience. So I was unfortunately fortunate to have people around me who had miscarriages as well. So they held my hand. They comforted me. If somebody who didn't go through the experience came to me and said, sorry for your loss, like, it didn't mean anything to me. Sorry to say, but having somebody who's been through the experience tell you, I understand. Having a friend tell me, ask me if I'm still hearing the baby crying. And I was like, like, it's a thing? Me ain't going crazy? That's actually a thing because I'm still hearing the cry. I'm still hearing it. As a home, I'm still hearing it. And she was like, yeah, that happened to me too. So having us as women be bold enough to just share, this is what this particular experience is like. Something that carries so much shame, something that carries so much hurt, something that unfortunately the world tells you, get over it. It was only 6 months. It was only this. It was only that. People who trivialize the experience. I just wanted to create a space where women who I might never ever meet in life could pick up this book and say, there is somebody who went through this experience. And what was, again, also very important to me was to make sure my black skin showed on the cover, to make sure that my locks showed on the cover.
Speaking of the cover, can you just put the book up and Veronica access to the same when she's finished?
This is the camera here? I don't know.
Yes,
Yeah.
right here.
Right. So making sure that it represented Caribbean, making sure it
Put it up
represented...
again. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, making sure it represented
Put it higher.
my story.
Perfect.
Does
Sorry.
it though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, making sure it represented my story. Because I think, well, even going through the experience, all that I was finding was stories from women in America,
Right.
and talking about their experiences, and it's like I don't relate to them people. So I wanted to make sure that it reflected a Caribbean story was reflected.
And I think, as you mentioned that, again, speaking to from the cultural the dilemma aspect of it, where it's probably fair to assume that there are thousands or hundreds in the Caribbean region who have encountered that same.
1 in every 4
Phew!
women.
Wow.
1 in
Serious?
every 4.
Wow.
See, so that I had no. So definitely in the more than thousands, quite more than that. But yet, it was hard for you to find anything from a Caribbean voice in relation to that specific story. And it just goes to speak to what we
The lost
mentioned earlier,
stories,
that
lost
there are a lot of stories, but also the culture of I'm sure there were many women who were inching maybe to share, but felt what may come in terms of being judged, the pressure of the cultural expectation that you're going to share that kind of thing. So, I mean, major kudos to you, Gian, for yeah, definitely.
But you see the thing about sharing too, and again, something I was very adamant about. I found that the women who were bold enough to share only shared after they got a child. So it's like,
So it wasn't the
so
process.
you,
okay,
so
okay, so you're
it's
saying
like
no.
I
Okay.
was a failure, but see me baby
Okay, I
here.
got you.
It's almost it almost kind of gave that vibe
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, yes, I went through the difficulty, but I made it through and I have a
Right.
child. And I promised myself I'm going to publish this book before I have another child.
Mm.
Before well, I wanted to publish have my launch on the anniversary of my son's birth. That's what I like to say. So that I can have a positive memory of the date
Okay.
of
Yes.
November 23rd, sorry. So I made sure that was really incorporated.
Okay, we're going to pause for a brief break and be right back.
INN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Ready to save while you build? Now you can at Builders Paradise. Yes, shoppers, build up your Value Club points at Builders Paradise. That's right, Value Club members and shoppers, your favorite frequent buyer club is now available at the home of hardware and more. Whether you're laying tiles, painting walls, replacing doors, upgrading windows, or fixing up your home, every purchase at Builders Paradise now earns you Value Club points. Enjoy exclusive benefits like discounts on thousands of items, special savings for seniors, instant deals, quarterly rebates, plus an extra up to 2% off every quarter. Shop more, save more, and more only at Builders Paradise. Don't miss out. Start building your rewards today with Value Club at Builders Paradise, because every bolt, board, and brush brings you closer to bigger, better savings. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to Bougainvillea Books and Gifts, where every visit is a journey through time and imagination. Step into a world of literary wonders at our boutique bookstore, where every book tells a story and every corner holds a treasure waiting to be discovered. Immerse yourself in the enchanting aromas of our scented candles, perfect for creating a cozy atmosphere in any space. Explore our exquisite handcrafted jewelry, whether you're searching for the perfect gift for that special someone or simply indulging in a little self-care. Bougainvillea Books and Gifts has something for everyone.
Okay, so welcome back. We're going to touch on a bit of a slight segue topic where so creative people are also known to be particularly good at problem solving. And in an ideal world, what would be a solution you would like to implement or like to see implemented in your community or within the wider federation? As a creative, as a woman, as a kitchen.
For me, I just think we need to share more. We don't share, because I think if we realize that more of us are suffering, or more of us are experiencing certain realities in a particular way, we could focus our attention on fixing things. But I don't think we share far enough that we're, but from a practical standpoint, I just wish we would move with the times, get more digital, just really let go a lot of the processes and procedures that we follow. I've been working in government for 18 years now, and people will be like, "How you survive?" But it's a place that is rich for growth and innovation, and I just wish we would welcome that more.
Okay.
If we would be bold enough to ask, "Is this working?" rather than just doing what we did yesterday.
Right. It's always been done this way.
Stop and ask, "Is this working?" And invite people to think about how we can effectively implement change.
Right. Or asking, how can we make this better?
Yes.
Because
especially for the generation that who has been growing up with technology and everything, and jobs is a little bit different now, because a long time ago it was just doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. But now you could be content creator and make money. You could be a YouTuber and make money. You could be, you could be a marketer that you work freelance. You could freelance a lot of things and make money. So I feel like that we still kind of 80s.
I just want us to be bold enough to stop and assess and honestly say, "Is this working?"
Right.
And the answer to a lot of that, when we consider how we do business, how we interact, is it's not working.
It's not working. And it is so true that even running a small business, it's not. We're still thinking 1980 and we soon reach 2030, but the thinking of 1980 is still like how. So it means that our children are still a step backwards.
Well, in a lot of cases, our children are waiting on us, are waiting on the system. But it is and will be, let me see how I could phrase this. It would be to the detriment of the country's advancement if we don't fill these gaps in terms of being innovative, being creative, coming back to the creative aspect of it. So looking at things, because as creatives, we look at things and we're probably always thinking, this could be done a different way, no? Or this could be shaped a different way, And it's just having the courage to even ask. So when one rephrasing it, is this working? It's been used like this or presented like this for a generation or generations. But I just had a thought that maybe if we shifted it a little to the left instead to the right way it could be a little bit better. But do we have the courage enough to present all these use cases to say, well, maybe this is, we could do this a different way?
Maybe if we have, when we done presented the persons we presented to decides that, well, it's a great, because sometimes we have the ideas and we share the ideas, but there's somebody that's there saying, not that. Right. It's working this way for a long time, I mean, it's going to stay working.
Yeah, that's why I say you have to honestly assess if it's working. And so, if you say it's working, who is it working for?
Correct. So then in that case, and Veronica, I don't know if you want to touch on something specifically that you would want to see country, community-wise, in terms of, as Jen mentioned, she would like to see us being more advanced or being more open to advancing in the digital space. What is it for you that you would like to see from a community or country level that it burns you when you look at it? It's like, and you wanna, what is it?
I think some things I can't say, but
okay, the ones that you can say, or the one that you can say.
I think being open. We're not open for change.
Okay.
We say we're open for change, but we're not really open for change. And you listen, but there is nothing. You're not really. It's not practical. You just listen and you just leave it there. And I've seen that even in being an entrepreneur, that we talk about. For example, we talk about being export ready.
Right.
But there's no avenue except for FedEx or UPS that we can export. But you're teaching us and you're telling us, well, make your stuff, make sure you have enough that we could export, but I can't even ship something to the post office. Like, I had the discussion at a time that if I want to ship to Antigua, I have to wait a whole month. If I want to ship to, it's crazy. But
is it working? You see,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
like,
working. So what is the solution that,
And somebody will say, well, you could do FedEx, but I mean, if somebody's going to buy something for 50 US and they have to spend 100 US because they have to spend it for the shipping.
Well, as you mentioned that, so from on a solution-oriented standpoint, because I'm being a little bit unfair, I'm going to be a little bit unfair in this to the powers that be, in the sense of saying that when you're in the, well, powers that be in various levels, when you're in the creative space, the problem may be that there's a disconnect between the creative side of things and the governance and business side of things, in some cases, not in all cases. But we're, again, the creative voices, quote unquote, may be kind of put over into one corner. You just create and you just produce, and when we need something creative, we call you and see what you could deliver. So you're just being tapped to supply your creative energy, right? But in terms of shaping the landscape, there may not be enough creative voices in the room to say, well, hey, this all sounds good. Maybe it's been going at this for a while, but how about we actually... So maybe the situation is that we need more creative voices in the decision-making areas, so that over time, the voices can't be ignored.
And then you understand us more, because, I mean, for example, if you're going to have a board and you don't have an agro-processor on that board that can tell you what they are going through,
Right.
or what the
Their
things
story.
that they're going, their story, you don't know.
Right. And it's different to having them come in and present
having a
presentation, right? You need, yeah, 'cause I've seen it. It's a totally different reception.
We need to help make the choices. We need to help make the decisions of what's
Right.
going on, so you know what's going on, because this person here does be talking about it all the time, but when every 6 months you come and you put us in a forum that we still don't really get to speak as how we want to speak, it makes no sense.
So there is some need for advocacy on the creative side of things. I don't know how it's going to happen or who's going to, or the whom is going to be pushing it, but we probably can acknowledge that it needs to happen, where we need, because it just becomes this disconnect where there's an opinion and that people see from creatives that may not be totally accurate.
And we see creatives different too, because artisans, you see creatives, you think of, there's the musicians, there's the DJs,
Right.
and
There's a wide spectrum of
yeah,
creatives,
but
right.
then the persons like Anna, like Riniel, people who we have to bring in everything for our business. It works, our hands are working, we're out here pushing, trying to push, but then you're pushing, you call us when you need a little vendor at an event or whatever, but then we don't get the exposure like how the musicians will get the exposure. We don't get the exposure like how the DJs will get the exposure. So we're just there for when conveniently, when you want to show people that we make things in St. Kitts.
Right.
And you tell us, and we keep having these, things, let's get export ready, we're export ready, we do these classes or whatever, but we can't export nothing shipping.
So it is a work in progress, which I'm hoping that, and I commend Gian for being in the, so Gian, her other, well, probably one of her
my full-time
well, I
jobs.
was about to say her full-time hat is being in the legal space, and so she's a creative to the core, and has now been a voice, I would expect, in her own space, her full-time space, where it is necessary, I would imagine. She can share and she can express and she can voice her ideas and concerns and whatever it is.
And that's why I haven't left.
Right,
yet.
and correct. No, so and it is important, and this is why I pointed out Jan, because it is important for, and it is a sacrifice. For some people, it would be a sacrifice because you're now doing this full time, where your creative endeavor, whatever it may be, may have to be secondary, maybe even third in line. But we will need more creatives in these decision-making areas who are competent and capable in their full time and still bring in the creative energy and the creative advocacy, because that is, on the creative side of things, we have to think different. And I always say, it's just thinking different. You see something, or think again. So you look at something and you look at it and say, okay, that's cool, but then look at it again from a different vantage point, a different perspective, and see what your opinion of it is. How can we shift it again? Is it working?
And I think
How
it's
can we make it
listening,
different?
but who are you listening to? Like, who makes the decisions? Like, so you're going to make
The
a
danger
decision.
of a single story.
Oh,
See
yeah.
there? Yeah.
Bring it right
You have
back.
to listen to various
You have to
voices.
listen to various. You
Yeah.
just can't go, you find we have 20 artists and they think it's, but you only talk to 2.
Right.
Right? But the 2 is doing something totally different to other 5.
Right.
So the 2 you might be listening is thinking they decided that they don't want to export, they're going to supply the country. But 5 over here thinking that my things are good enough to ship to Antigua or to send to St. Lucia. But you're not speaking to that 5. You're speaking to the 2 who decides, they're okay with the market that they're in and they're going to stay in the market they're in. But they have those 5 who wants to expand them.
Right. And I know there has been some, in terms of the small business development, they have been relatively active in terms of, it appears, in terms of trying to bring entrepreneurs, add resources, add value to what they're doing, from the terms of giving support on the bookkeeping, business development side of things. So they may have some gaps, that there are some areas that they still need to expand or improve on, but it is a plus that it exists at least.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress,
It's a
right?
work in progress, but it's how slow we're working. Like, we're talking things that we're talking about for ongoing. But I mean, there are trying.
Our size is an asset and a liability as well.
That's true too.
Because I think the biggest problem, the biggest problem that we have when it comes to administration and getting things done in St. Kitts and Nevis is that there are too few people making decisions or capable to make decisions. So if there are 99 problems, there is one person deciding. And it's going to take one person a while to deal with 99 problems.
Correct.
So, and it's not even to say, we haven't even gone into the competency or the creativity of that one person. It's just the mass of problems, as opposed to maybe, other countries where there's a department solely focused on grievances for small businesses, and a whole other department of people focused on, benefits for entrepreneurs and things like that. So I think that's why our progress as a country is so slow. There's too few people with power to make decisions, and it just it takes too long. I've always advocated for making the government civil service public service more top heavy. So everything doesn't have to come through just one person. You should have trained 5 or 6 people to make this decision so that problems get fixed faster.
Right.
It's just a pace thing. It's a pace thing for me. We move way too slow because everything is funneled through a very small group of people.
No, are we due for a break? So we'll take a break, and just to give you a heads up, when we get back, I want you to share what you count as your signal achievement in your life to date, and what about it makes it your or significant to you. So you can think about that, and we'll get to it right after the break.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9 Win FM.
Welcome to Bougainvillea Books and Gifts, where every visit is a journey through time and imagination. Step into a world of literary wonders at our boutique bookstore, where every book tells a story and every corner holds a treasure waiting to be discovered. Immerse yourself in the enchanting aromas of our scented candles, perfect for creating a cozy atmosphere in any space. Explore our exquisite handcrafted jewelry. Whether you're searching for the perfect gift for that special someone or simply indulging in a little self-care, Bougainvillea Books and Gifts has something for everyone.
This Father's Day weekend at Builders Paradise, we've got big deals for dad and low prices for all. Yes, we've got a massive 25% off store-wide on all discountable items. Yes, 25% off Builders Paradise, already low everyday prices. From power tools to paint, lumber to lighting and more. It's all at Builders Paradise, and it's all on sale. Show dad some love for the gear he wants at everyday low prices you love. But don't wait. The sale runs for 3 days only. Thursday, June 12th, Friday, June 13th, and Saturday, June 14th. Father's Day weekend only at Builders Paradise, where big deals for dad and everyday low prices for all come together. Happy Father's Day from Builders Paradise.
We're having a very thoughtful discussion at the break, as we normally do. And so this is our last. We're on the heading to the runway, about to land in the next 15 minutes. But
Land
we
or
spoke.
take off.
Well, we were in the air. We've been in the air, so we're going to be landing just now, bringing it home in the next 15 minutes. So, signal achievement that you consider.
You go, I've been
Yeah,
going
you
first.
need to go first. Yeah.
You're thinking about it?
You're thinking about it like a single achievement.
I know you have more than a one, but when I tell you, think about signal achievement, what pops in your mind, like immediately without even having to think about it, like something that makes your heart flutter, like, oh,
I did that.
I did that. Yeah.
My first daughter.
Oh, there you go.
She lives on her own now.
Mhm.
She's just 23. But I felt like, because when I was young, I was wondering, I was a young mother, and I wonder if I would do a good job. You know, it's my first. I'm on my own. I live on my own for over 20 years. And when I see her and seeing her excelling, running a small business and having her, you know, being an adult, and I'm like, I did that. I was part of that. And then it's strange because, you know, most
It's not strange
accomplishments
at
is in
all.
business or whatever, but when I
Strange at
see
all.
her, I feel so proud and I feel so, like, you know, and I did that.
Alright, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. How about you, Jan?
Without question, my book.
Okay.
I think it's the culmination of me versus the worst time of my life. Having to go through the experience of not getting pregnant for 4 years, being extremely excited about finally getting pregnant, and then having a fantastic pregnancy, and then it just suddenly just changed. And to see, so it's that absolute drop from heaven, where I was so devastated. I think back on how I felt and how I behaved. I was afraid to go out by myself, even to go to the supermarket. I felt like people were watching me and judging me, and everybody could see that I wasn't able to bring my son to into the world, and I felt so scared to go out. My husband had to go everywhere with me. I was so scared. But then to see at some point there was this turn in my mental capacity to say, I have to turn this into something, and went to therapy, decided going to therapy, went back to church, really just worked on myself, pulling myself out of that to the point of publishing, learning how to publish a book. No idea.
We didn't even get into that.
No idea how to publish a book. So learning from people and just looking at how everything just came together. And so on November 23rd, 2021, I said, happy birthday, Kingston. Your mommy is an author. Like, to me, that is, like, to know where I came from and to see what I was able to accomplish in a year, I am absolutely untouchable. I know this because of what I was able to do for myself mentally.
When was the book published? What year?
2021. So my last was 2020.
Okay.
So COVID, everything.
Oh Lord.
So yeah, that
year.
dynamic as well. So I think that experience showed me that whatever I say I want to do, I am absolutely capable of doing it.
No doubt.
So that's why I think that's my biggest achievement to date.
It's a
Yeah.
big achievement.
It is. It is. And to pour all that into a publication in a year, that is, and still having, imagine, a full-time life.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So having to shift emotions and yeah, that's significant. That's significant. And you have, as I say, it lives on. So regardless, future, and so we touched on it earlier on in terms of the appeal of having like a physical book. I don't think you put your book up yet, Did you?
No, she didn't.
When in your thing, I'll make sure you put up your book so people can see it. But in terms of, and this ties in something that Gianna mentioned earlier, and we discussed earlier in terms of like female authors and so a plug to Bougainvillea Books and Gifts. They have a book club that they've been running now for maybe the past year. I try to attend as much as possible. It's they're actually having one. I think the next one is next week Saturday. So it's a plug there if your persons are interested in actually, getting a Caribbean. And the thing is that it's all Caribbean authors.
Yes.
And I think we've had maybe eight books so far over the past year plus, and certainly the majority of them, if not 5 or 6, they're female authors. Now I don't know if it's Susan's bias, but Sarah's bias, but well, it is Bougainvillea in collaboration with Island Bookie, I believe, and so they review books and they tell me which ones. But all the books have been spectacular books, spectacular reads. And it's just a reflection that is encouraging to see so many. It seems now that as it relates to novels, at least, there is a sort of a surge in female authors really pushing their stuff out. So that's great to see. Now, in terms of, in an interview, Bob Marley once said that the only consciousness I have of myself is that I can be beneficial to a people. Does this concept of consciousness connect in any way with the various roles you undertake?
That's my life.
Yeah.
That's my life. I feel like my purpose really is to help people experience life better. But in whatever realm I go into, that's really the guiding light. With creativity and dealing with IP, my whole energy has been about how can creative people make money from their creativity and because I can tell you could work in this space and there are people who don't care a thing about creativity, but they're hired in this space. And I a lot of what I've done through the office has been nothing more than my own personal passion. Pushing things because I could have given up a long time ago. I've been offered jobs. I could have left government, but I feel like it's really important that the legal framework supports creativity, and that's really where my push is. So my consciousness is always about people getting, being able to be better. And even with my book, the book cost 35 EC. I never wanted it to be expensive. I'm not gonna give it away, like stuff like that.
So speaking of your book, where can people?
Yeah, so my book is available on Amazon right now. I think I have to restock at Law's Bookstore, but it's also available at Carib Wellness on Ponds Pasture as well. In Nevis, it's available in Antigua.
Okay.
So, and I've done events in Antigua. I've done events in St. Lucia as well. Like, I am very passionate about creating a better space for women who unfortunately go through the experience of pregnancy loss. There's a lot that can be done, and the book contains all sorts of recommendations on how governments could be more supportive, husbands could be more supportive, friends could be more supportive, workplaces, everybody, strangers, how you could be more supportive. Because I realized that people didn't understand that it's insensitive to ask about these things.
Because because I imagine it's new to a lot of persons in terms of being out in the open, like knowing someone
and you know, one of the biggest groups of people I think stand to understand the effects of going through a miscarriage. Doctors.
That's interesting.
Doctors.
But I could totally understand without you going deep into it.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah.
It's just for us being able to share that this is what we need from you if you have to go through that experience. And like I said, unfortunately, statistics suggest that 1 in every 4 women is going to go through this. Right. And the more that we become more unhealthy, the more we become more stressed, the more we don't handle our environment better, it's going to get worse.
So do you think that it seems like one of the major parts, the many parts of GN, one of the major parts is advocacy?
Yes.
Now, Veronica. So before you start with your in terms of the conscious, and you shared some of them, the community, the library, etc., which you could touch on other things. But before you begin anything, just please put your book up. I don't think you had a chance to just. Yeah, that's perfect. So that's her book, Pieces of Me, and you could just share where persons can get it.
So you can get this on Amazon, and we have them at Bougainvillea Books and Gifts.
All right, excellent. So now on the consciousness side of things, a lot of creatives tend to have some sort of a conscious element to them, because a lot of things are personal, or you're inspired by things you experience in the community you're in, or just observing whatever it is. So you can just share in terms of, in any way, the various, how consciousness, how it affects the various roles you take.
For me, I think I want to, when I begin and when I start, is always I want to inspire my children, and then I want to, and then it spreads. Inspiration has been that thing for me that a lot of us, sometimes it's just a little encouragement and a little boost in confidence, and I'm aspiring to be inspiring to one and all. That wherever you meet me in public or you hear me online, it's about inspiring each other, trying to inspire.
All right, great. Well, on that note, just going to ask you for your 1 minute or 30-second wrap in terms of what words of advice, and just talk about inspiring, you have for listeners who are aspiring writers or authors.
2 things, two very simple things. Go for it and follow your own rules. Don't feel bound to do what somebody else is doing or has done. You want to write a book with the first page in the middle, do it. But have a reason behind it. Follow your own rules. That I'm very big on that.
Love it. I love it. What about you, Veronica?
She said there's nothing else to say, but just jump, just do it. Just
Yeah,
do
take-
it. It
take
took
the
me
leap.
it took me years to really decide I am going to do it. I did it and hit it. But just do it. Be authentically you.
All right. Excellent. Well, thanks again to you wonderful ladies. And as we would have discussed earlier on, it's not just a single story or a single lens you can view them through. We have quite a bit of different mini and sub stories that we all can share. So don't feel inclined to limit yourself. This is for the listeners to a single story. Be authentically you. In authentically you may be quite a bit of a mix and match of craziness. Right. So don't be ashamed of that and just embrace it and share it. So thanks again to all our listeners and viewers for being with us for another episode of Creative Voices. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win.